This Week in Startups is brought to you by AdRoll, the most widely used retargeting platform in the world with over 25,000 advertisers. Get started with a $100 credit at adroll.com/twist. And Braintree. You want to turn your brilliant idea into a great product that people can't wait to buy. So start thinking about how you'll accept payments. To learn more about how Braintree can help, visit braintreepayments.com/twist.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and this is the show where we talk about entrepreneurship, venture capital, angel investing, and technology. Now, if I told you that startups were going to try to build a business out of going to space 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you would have laughed me out of the room because, hey, that's something that governments did. NASA, Russia, China. Those were the people who were in the space game. But suddenly, 10 years ago, our good friend Elon Musk decided, hey, I'm going to start putting rockets up. I'm going to try to do a rocket ship company called SpaceX. And then, crazy Steve Jurvetson backed him. He's been on the program as well. And now we're starting to see a lot of people investing in space and a lot of people getting interested in it. Today on the program, we're going to have Bob Richards, who is, and I'm laughing because if I told anybody that you were building a startup to go to the moon, that you would have been laughed out of the room. But so when you started telling people, Bob, and welcome to the program, that you were going to take people or you were going to go to the moon as part of a startup company.
Right. We have a moonshot.
Yeah, exactly.
What is it? It's a moonshot.
It's literally a moonshot.
Literally a moonshot.
So you've raised $31.5 million to do this.
Yes.
You're going to go to the moon, correct? This is your startup business.
Yes, with robots.
With robots, right. That's important because it would be a magnitude more expensive to send
Or magnitudes, yes.
So here, I'm just going to play a video and we'll talk over it a bit.
Sure.
But for people who are not watching, we're seeing like basically R2-D2 with a couple of legs bouncing up and down on a kid's trampoline of some type.
Well,
What is that?
So this is how we got our training wheels to learn how to do landers. You know, NASA's really good at doing spacecraft and startup companies. You know, how do you learn? We were able to partner with NASA down at NASA Ames. This vehicle had been created through a government program, and we were able to invest in that program and learn how to fly this vehicle. So what we're seeing is a vehicle in a building in a net, and that's how we learn how to fly landers.
What are we seeing here? What is this big contraption?
So as we climbed the capability ladder, we had to come up with our own propulsion systems. We're looking at our very first, spacecraft in a garage type tests.
Got it. And what is that? Is it just blowing air? Is that
what we're looking at is hydrogen peroxide powered rocket engines. And now we're looking at the Mighty Eagle, which is at the Marshall Space Flight Center. So now we're in Huntsville, Rocket City. And we got our license to fly by flying this vehicle. The reason that you're not seeing any exhaust is it's superheated steam. Hydrogen peroxide, H2O2, decomposing into steam. So we're building steam engines to go to the moon.
Got it. And these things seem to be floating, basically, like levitating almost. But
they look like it.
They look like because you don't see any
thrust.
thrust.
Invisible, right? But it's not. If you heard the audio, it would be very loud because there's lots of propulsion coming out of those engines.
Interesting.
And we're seeing this thing coming down out of the sky. The goal is to land right side up and to land softly.
Now wait, is this and I see that you have like a little fake moon there with craters and rocks, so you're teaching it how to land.
It's a robot that needs to fly through space and land on the moon all by itself, right? Nobody's going to be there to take over the controls. There's no Neil Armstrong. So it has to have the visual acuity, all the sensors. It has to recognize hazards like rocks and slopes.
Got it. So when it starts coming down into the moon's, I guess there's no atmosphere, but in the moon's orbit, when it starts to come down to land on the moon,
you're in space until even when you're on the moon, you're still in space.
Still in space.
So there's nothing.
No atmosphere.
You can't use moon parachutes. Will not work.
Yeah.
So only you have to use rockets all the way down to the surface. And as we see, this is what you have to do. You have to slowly and just sort of kiss the moon after traveling 250,000 miles.
Hey, stupid question from a non-space guy. What happens if it hits the top of a boulder and it makes a mistake? It starts rolling down. Is that a game over for your...
Well, you want to try to avoid that. That would really suck. That's a technical term in the space industry.
Yes.
So what you want to have is hazard avoidance intelligence on the robot. So it's robotic eyes, 3D scanning, be able to recognize boulders, slopes, and
but if it misses and it makes a mistake, you're screwed. Basically.
Well, not necessarily. So
you got a robot that can't move.
So the goal is to land on the moon softly, and for the robot to say, "I'm here," and then the champagne pops and everybody cheers.
Got it.
But even if we're the first private sector company to touch the moon, even if it's hard, we're going to learn a lot, and we'll try it again.
Got it. All right. Now, when we get back from this important message from our partners, I want you to answer the obvious question here, which is. Not can you do it? It seems possible to do it. And in fact, it seems probable you're going to be able to do it in my estimation, given where we're at. The question I have is, how is this a business? How will you make money when we get back on This Week in Startups? Hey, everybody. I want to take a moment to tell you about retargeting. This is a very, very important thing for startups to understand because customer acquisition is what it's all about, and AdRoll is the best retargeting platform on the planet. Over 25,000 advertisers use it. And I want to tell you today about a new product they have. It's called Send Roll. No, it's not sending to get you rolls and buttered rolls. No, this is about email. And Send Roll lets you get all those people who are window shoppers, people who are checking out your website, and then you can convert them into buyers, which is what you want, getting them to sign up for your product or service by email. So imagine they visit your site, but then they get an email follow-up. SendRoll is powerful retargeting tech plus effective emails, and the results have been spectacular. The average SendRoll gets a 45 to 60% open rate and a 10 to 20% click-through. And I can tell you, running inside.com, that is probably 4 times the industry average. And it's so easy to set up a SendRoll campaign. It just takes minutes. They give you all the templates, and they have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week customer service line if you need help. And what I always like to do when we have somebody who has a product that's loved on our program, we don't want to read any sponsor messages, any partner messages for things that are not loved. The great part is a lot of my founders from my portfolio use AdRoll, so it's very easy for me to talk about their new product, SendRoll. James Heller, the founder of Rapify, which went through my incubator, says AdRoll is an integral part of our customer acquisition strategy. It allows us to continue to garner impressions long after the initial customer interaction. It's also one of the most cost-effective tools to bolster any integrated marketing strategy. AdRoll is the best retargeting platform, period. That's according to James Heller, good friend of mine and one of my investments at Rapify. So here's your call to action, everybody. Try SendRoll and get a $100 credit. Just go to adroll.com/twist, 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 and get that $100 credit. And please try that SendRoll and give them some feedback and let them know that Jason sent you. Okay, let's get back to this amazing program. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis. You can follow the show at TWI Startups on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me on the Twitter and Instagram at Jason, Jason. Yes, I'm showing off my Twitter handle and my Instagram handle. Today on the program, Bob Richards, who also is on the Twitter, Bob_Richards, and he is the CEO and co-founder of Moon Express, which has existed, I think, since 2010, and they've got about 50 or so employees, 50, plus some contractors. But the really exciting thing about having you here on August, checking my Fitbit, August 15th, is just a couple of days ago, August 3rd, you were given official permission to be, I need some timpani here, the first, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you were the first commercial venture allowed to land on the moon. Is that correct?
To leave Earth orbit.
To leave Earth orbit.
Which includes landing on the moon. So
got it.
Only governments have ever had spacecraft that have left Earth orbit. They've only been government spacecraft. All the Mars missions, the Apollo missions, the other planets. Sense. It's only governments. Commercial vehicles are currently kind of like the maritime vehicles that hugged the coast. They're coastal vessels. So when a SpaceX vehicle goes into Earth orbit or an orbital, they're only 200 miles away. And then the farthest that the commercial sector goes with rockets is about 25,000 miles away, which delivers communication satellites. The moon is 250,000 miles away. That's the deep ocean.
Right.
No private sector company has gone that far yet. So, well, who knew you needed a license to do that? And so the reason that we do need a license to do that is the Outer Space Treaty, and that's a thing, was signed in 1967 by over 100 countries, including the United States. And so the United States wants to show that it's being responsible and compliant in authorizing and supervising all activity as it's obligated to do under the Outer Space Treaty. So we had to say, this is what we'd like to do. The challenge was nobody had asked the questions before, so there were no laws and there were no regulations for us to apply. There was no form that we could fill out.
Who do you call? You call POTUS? You call the President of the United States?
We did.
Or you talked to NASA?
Well, we talked to NASA.
Who's in charge of space in the United
Well,
States?
yeah, so most people would say NASA, but NASA's not a regulatory body.
Right.
NASA's an exploration body.
Gotcha.
So when a commercial company goes into space, there's always a launch license. The launch license, no matter who you are, is granted by the FAA Office of Commercial Space Transportation.
Got it.
Kind of makes sense.
Sure.
So
You're flying.
you're flying. It's transportation. You just happen to be going into space.
Sure.
So when that happens, a lot of agencies take a look at that, making sure it's okay. The State Department, the DOD, the Department of Communications, anybody with 3 or 4 letters gets to take a look at it. So the challenge we had is no one agency had the authority to say yes to our mission. Everybody had the right to say no. Everybody had a little piece of the puzzle.
Gotcha.
So we knitted together a proposal. We did go to the White House, and we socialized this idea among all of the agencies for about a year before we actually pulled the trigger and made the application.
Got it. And so who wound up agreeing? Officially, the story is FAA gave you permission to go?
The FAA on behalf of the interagency process, because the FAA, it doesn't have full authority, but with the consensus of everybody said, we've looked at this, and for this one time, exclusive basis for you, Moon Express, in 2017, we're going to say, okay, we know there's a permanent fix that's needed. That will happen in due course.
So they gave you one shot at it.
One shot at it.
Oh, it's like Eminem.
Like Eminem.
One shot.
Yeah.
So what does your company actually do, and what are you in the business of? Because that's what I mean. If you raise $30 million from
and
folks,
raising another 25, so
and you're going to raise more at some point, obviously here, yeah.
Right.
So if you are raising that much money, do those people, are they giving it to you like as a Kickstarter gift because it's cool to go to the moon, or is there some business here? You're going to bring back some rocks?
It's about a business.
Okay.
So
is there a piece of Krypton up there? What's up there?
There might be.
Yeah.
It might be the unobtainium.
So what's the business?
So the long-term arc of the vision of the company is to unlock the resources of the moon. There are quadrillions of dollars of resources on the moon through bombardment from meteorites and asteroids for billions of years. It's all there. What are the economics of that? Well, none right now.
Okay.
But the discovery of water in the moon, which is pretty recent, changes that economics. Water is like the oil of the solar system. Mm-hmm. Hydrogen and oxygen is rocket fuel. So completely is a game changer, changes the economics, not just the value of the resources of the moon, but everywhere else you want to go in space. In the early days as a company, we're in the transportation business, not unlike SpaceX.
Got it.
We're taking stuff to the moon. If you want to send a package across the city, you call FedEx. If you want to send a package to the moon, you call MoonX.
Got it. So you're going to be a delivery service for people who want to get stuff to the moon.
Yes. And
who wants to put stuff on the moon?
Well, interestingly, quite a few people, not just
Really?
the government. We have
Aside from Bond villains.
So we have a great manifest of a combination of government and private and science and novelty on our first mission.
So novelty, that's the thing that's the most interesting. So somebody's going to be able to put like a locket up there, or the remains of a loved one.
Yeah, connecting themselves to the moon, the remains of their loved one. The moon is, a real part of our cultures, right? Sure. Every human culture looks at the moon very carefully. It's a symbol of love. So a lot of people want to touch the moon.
So are you going to be able to take stuff back? Let's get specific here, because you threw the whole sink at it there of what's possible.
First, we want to land on the moon.
Okay.
And only superpowers have done that so far. So give us, let's get that done.
Huge bragging rights. Okay.
Huge bragging rights.
Right.
But in the first few years by 2020, we want to bring something back.
Got it.
And close the business case, show that a private sector company can go to the moon, can obtain something, can bring it back and own it and sell it, and that will be an important symbolic and a profitable mission for us.
It'll be profitable to bring a rock back from the moon.
Think of about a kilogram, maybe 3 or 4 of moon dust. Privately, be the only stuff from the moon that's privately owned on planet Earth. Only the governments own all the moon rocks now. You and I can't own them. Right? We can buy a chip off a lunar meteorite that nature delivers to Earth.
Got it.
I have one in my pocket.
Huh.
I really do. But you can't buy a real moon rock that was brought back by a robot or a human.
So you think there's people on planet Earth who will pay a lot of money for moon dust and moon rocks?
Well, there's a great...
As a keepsake?
Yeah, as a keepsake. Or as an enhancement to diamonds. And, so the first bit of moon dust will be profitable for us. That's not a long-term...
Is there something up there that is incredibly valuable in those minerals? Or is a sort of like digging and finding out if there's something? Like, did the government find stuff up there that's incredibly valuable? Because if they did, wouldn't we be going back there all the time already?
Well, see, when we went to the moon in the 60s and 70s, it was government superpowers trying to show who's better than the other. Technical supremacy, magnificent achievements, and we're standing on the shoulders of those gigantic achievements. But now we're looking at economics and expanding the economic sphere of Earth beyond Earth orbit to the moon and then to the asteroids and beyond. So what is the actual killer app of the moon? We might not know till we get there, but we do know that there could be more platinum group metals on the surface of the moon than all the reserves of Earth. Some people love the helium-3, and that argument is that helium-3 could be a great fusion source. The technology not yet evolved, but if that technology is perfected, helium-3 could be a clean source of energy for planet Earth, and there's only a tiny bit of it on planet Earth, but there's a huge amount of it on the moon.
So there is a possibility that if you get up there and you start mining stuff and bringing it back, it could be valuable to invaluable on planet Earth.
Correct. But I think the most important resource is the water. The water makes the moon the gateway to the solar system. So the markets so water, its constituents, hydrogen and oxygen, form rocket fuel. It's a very efficient form of rocket fuel. Our rocket engines use hydrogen peroxide, H2O2, basically oxygen. HTP is like oxygen-infused water. So we now have a fuel source on the moon. If we can use the water for rocket fuel, the moon becomes a gas station in the sky.
Got it. So when we get out of the Earth's atmosphere, we could stop over to the moon. Then you could be processing some type of fuel there and refuel a ship to then go on to the
or create fuel depots in space. The point is that it's enormously expensive to get off of the Earth, out of the deep gravity well of Earth, because most of the fuel is just lifting fuel.
Right. That is not a winning proposition.
So what you want to do...
How much fuel do you need to put an equal amount of fuel into the sky? Or is it like 5 to 1, 2 to 1, 1 to 1?
In general, people are pretty familiar with the space shuttle. A really big thing, lots of smoke and fire coming out as it goes through the sky. About 15/16 of that is fuel.
Okay, so
it's a very inefficient way to get into space using chemical propulsion. But just like it would be inefficient if there were no gas stations and you wanted to drive across the country and had to take all the gas with you.
Right, except that once you get it up there, there's no resistance in space, so you need a lot less fuel, don't you, when you get into space, if you're going to travel?
This is the key. The Earth is this huge gravity well. Once you're in space, you're halfway to anywhere.
Interesting. So that really is our gating factor. All right, when we get back from this next break, I want to ask you about how you raised money to do this. How does a founder come into the room with the audacity to say, we're going to go to the moon, we're going to be FedEx for the moon, or we're going to build a gas station on the moon, any of these things? I'm trying to think of how the investors respond and what your response to them is on a return basis. Like, when can we expect a return from Moon Express? How do the VCs look at that when we get back on This Week in Startups? Hey, everybody, let me tell you about Braintree. Yes, Payments 101. You have a brilliant idea, but you need to turn it into a great product that people can't wait to buy. But now is the time to think about how you'll accept payments. You'll first need a payment gateway that collects your customers' payment data, and you have to make sure their funds are approved. Then you need to send those funds to a merchant account. And the merchant account is a temp holding tank for your money collected from online sales. Once it passes through your merchant account, it ends up in your bank account. Yes, there's multiple steps. It's not simple, but it becomes very simple when you use Braintree. Yes, Braintree is a payments platform that comes with a payment gateway and a merchant account. They make it super simple. All you have to do is add a couple of lines of code to your app, to your website, and it all works. You can make it work so simply by visiting braintreepayments.com/twist, braintreepayments.com/twist. It is the easiest way to add payments to any product or service. Many of the companies I've invested in use it, and every time a new product or service comes out, like Apple Pay or Bitcoin, whatever it is, the next payment service that we don't even know about or haven't considered, they will incorporate it, and they do it usually before that service even launches or while it's launching. So you just wind up getting this incredible wind in your sails, basically, by using Braintree. I see it happen on all my startups. They save weeks, if not months, of coding and pain and suffering by just using Braintree for their payments. Go ahead and visit braintreepayments.com/twist. And a personal thank you from me to Braintree for making such a great product that all my startups I invest in use. Just a great product. Okay, and it's simple. All right, let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. We're geeking out about space with Bob Richards, who is the co-founder and CEO of Moon Express, which has about 50 people basically planning to go to the moon. They got permission in 2017. They got permission in 2016 to go to the moon in 2017, which makes them the only commercial private sector company to be able to leave Earth's atmosphere. You got permission from the FAA at this moment. There's going to be a lot of other ones. Yep. But this is a really big deal that you're going to be able to go to the moon. Now, let me ask this, because I'm obsessed about how you raise money for this. And I see the Founders Fund is in Autodesk, Barney Powell. I know a lot of these folks.
Naveen Jain so the co-founders of the company are myself, Naveen Jain, and Barney Powell.
Got it. Yep. So you got a bunch of people who have credibility. You start going to investors and say, hey, we want to go to the moon. Now, I know that Google did the Lunar X Prize.
Correct.
Which I believe was a $30 million prize. Is a $30 million prize.
It was announced in 2007.
I was at a party at Google, and I think they announced the Lunar X Prize there.
Well, it might have been around that time. Maybe we met each other at that party.
Yeah.
But 2007, the prize was announced. It's now coming up to 10 years of the prize.
Was Rufus Wainwright the musical guest?
Yes, we were absolutely.
All right, then we were at the
same party.
Well, this was like 10 tables, 20 tables. Set the stage
of
here.
High net worth
individuals,
incredible people,
just some good-looking ones too. At my table too. Mm-hmm. And what was the point of this? What did Google announce at that Rufus Wainwright?
So Google announced that having a real moonshot is really important for Google's brand of inspiring young kids, of innovating and showing that entrepreneurship innovation can lead to fantastic things. So Google put up the $30 million of the prize. The X Prize Foundation, Peter Diamandis, is managing that prize, and now almost 10 years later, we're about 18 months away from the expiry date of that prize. So we need to, if we want to win this, which we do, we need to land on the moon by the end of 2017 and send back images and video, relocate at least 500 meters, do the same thing with video and images, and that's a first prize of $20 million. Wow. And it's great, but it doesn't actually cost to cover the cost of the mission. So and it's not repeatable. So it's a fantastic. It helps close the first mission. But as with all X Prizes, the idea is to innovate a new industry.
Right. The X Prize is certainly fascinating, and I remember watching this one, and I just thought to myself, sitting there, is anybody going to be able to do this? Like, how much would it cost? And actually, I was at Elon's table. And because we were,
and I came over and said hi. So we must
have met there. But this is when
I had Richard.
Nobody knew who Elon was at this time.
Nobody had bragging rights. I had Richard beside me.
Yeah. So it was very interesting because it was like a very small, weird thing that Google did. I don't think people were paying attention. But now here we are, 8.5 years later, it's about to expire. How many people are in this final leg? Is anybody else really competing with you? Or?
So there was a gating feature of the competition last year that Google
like a qualifying.
Well, feature? Google specified that if we're going to extend the competition to the end of 2017, we want to see people with launch contracts. So last year, two teams, Moon Express and the Israeli team, SpaceX, came up with launch contracts that were verified by the X Prize Foundation, and all other teams need to come up with launch contracts by the end of this year, 2016, in order to remain in the competition.
Got it. So you have to have somebody like SpaceX or somebody to bring you to space?
A credible launch contract with real value, real money exchanging hands with a credible mission scenario. We announced back in 2015, October, that we've entered into a launch contract with Rocket Lab USA. Actually, multiple launch contracts. We entered into a 3-launch contract with Rocket Lab, which is another startup, backed by Bessemer and Khosla. That has yet to fly and will be doing their first test launches later this year.
So you have to, what's it called? Rocket
Lab.
Rocket Lab
USA.
So you got it's a two for here. Rocket Lab has to make it work, and then you have to make it work.
That's right.
Got it.
Very much back to like the first days of SpaceX when they're developing the Falcon 1E, if you remember.
Yeah.
That's where we are with Rocket Lab.
Is SpaceX participating? Is Elon participating in this?
Well, listen, SpaceX offered, Elon's a great friend of the prize and of the whole space community. And SpaceX offered a 10% discount, I believe, on any of their vehicles. So
you can get passage on a SpaceX.
Yeah, yes. And I would love to fly with SpaceX. We're actually rocket agnostic. I love SpaceX.
Right.
But rockets are like a commodity to us. And
you got to go for the best price.
We do.
Yeah. And SpaceX is a little expensive right now?
Well, but it's price and risk, right? So no, SpaceX is not expensive compared for what it's doing. It's amazingly affordable. But with Rocket Lab offering a vehicle for $5 million that you can put in your shopping cart, it's the risk reward. And
wait, explain that. What is Rocket Lab doing? They have
they have from drawing board come up with a very inexpensive rocket utilizing a lot of 3D printing and light structures and composites. And if you go onto their website, $4.9 million, put it in the shopping cart and you got one. So we bought 3.
You're kidding. So this rocket, I'm playing it right now. We'll pull up the thing here. These cats from Rocket Lab have a $5 million.
But that's not unlike what SpaceX was going to offer the 1E for 6 or 7 million. So that's the realm of the rocket. SpaceX, for market reasons, went from their 1E, abandoned that market path and went to the Falcon 9 for good reasons. But that left
because they had people who had bigger payloads.
Yeah. But that left a vacuum, I guess pun intended, in the marketplace.
Right.
That Rocket Lab and others are now starting to fill.
Got it. So this is smaller rockets.
Smaller rockets, dedicated low Earth orbit only. We can't get to, let's say, a geostationary orbit, so we had to come up with a spacecraft that could go on the top of an electron, be delivered to low Earth orbit, and still make it to the surface of the moon.
So you have to then do a second stage, as it were?
We're like the top. Well, so our little spacecraft is kind of like an R2-D2 with rockets. You could consider it the third stage of the electron. So after the electron or any rocket delivers it to low Earth orbit, our little hot rod lights up and rockets toward the moon.
So they're going to get you to low Earth orbit.
Yes.
And you have to have enough power
to leave low Earth orbit, do a translunar injection, a trajectory toward the moon.
Right.
And then you got to slow down again. So the same amount of energy that got you going, you got to turn around and hit the brakes, go into orbit around the moon, hit the brakes again, and then go in for the landing.
What are the chances you nail this? What do you think? What are your chances?
On the very first try, space is hard, man. It's
so what
really
do you give yourself, 50-50, 40-60? Let's be candid here. What's the chance on the first
I think
shot
that we have a huge chance of being the first private sector company on the moon.
Okay. So you feel you've got a great
How
chance
softly
with 3?
we are touching the moon at that point is another. I think we've got 3, just like SpaceX and Rocket Lab are giving themselves 3 chances to learn how to do it. We bought 3 rockets.
Got it. So you're convinced you got an above 90% chance of getting there?
I think we've got above a 50-50 chance of doing it, nailing it on the very first time.
Wow. But if you got a 50-50 on one shot and you learn a little bit each time, well, your odds are going to go up. So
yeah, we're going to be. I think we will nail it on the first time. That's my hope. I'm the eternal optimist.
Right.
But we've got insurance and underwriting that allows us to recapitalize, and we'll go to another couple of tries.
So take me through the scenario where you go get investment for this. When you raised the first 30 or so million, you were going to individuals in what time frame?
Well, it's a Silicon Valley. Yeah, it's a Silicon Valley model. So we started with an A round that was about $2.7 million, high net worth individuals. A lot of Barney Pell's network, thank you, Barney, came in. A lot of the people that had gone through Founders Fund into SpaceX in the early days came into MoonX. So that was great. That got us going. Then we did a Series B round. Autodesk came into that, and the checks started getting bigger. So as we proved we could achieve the technical milestones that we said we could for that amount of money, building evaluation of the company. We're now in our C round. Yeah. As you mentioned on there, over $30 million raised. We had another $25 million to go. And so the whole envelope from founding the company in 2010 to landing on the moon in 2017 is on the order of $50 to $60 million. Wow.
How much did the first landing on the moon cost the United States?
Well, so we're talking the robots, right? So the first, the surveyors that first landed on the moon, somebody would probably, no matter what I say, I'm probably going to be wrong. Because you'd have to convert to today's dollars. But I think it was $1 billion program.
Yeah, in today's dollars, probably. Yeah. So it's a 20th as much to get to the moon now.
Right. And it might be a fairer comparison to what, let's say, NASA would commission a lander vehicle on the moon. Would still be hundreds of millions of dollars. Will still be a fraction of what that would be, not because we have smarter people than NASA. It's because the risk propositions are different. It's because NASA engineers can only use what's flown before, so they can't really innovate. There's a disincentive to innovate. We can embrace new technologies. We've done 3 technical pivots since we founded the company.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So our minimum viable product has been redefined 3 times since we started the company.
What were the pivots and why were they important?
So the first pivot was you showed video of, I said we got our training wheels on the NASA vehicle.
Yeah.
That vehicle was a completely viable vehicle. It was launched to the moon as an orbiter. Actually, it was called LADEE, and we were investing into the LANDEE version of that vehicle. But as the price of following the NASA path of utilizing all of the same components, as that started to rise the cost of the mission towards $100 million, it became, to me, unfundable. So that's when we innovated the MX-1, the donut that you saw flying, and that was designed to be a secondary vehicle that could go under a primary spacecraft, let's say on the top of a Falcon. There would be a big satellite, and we're kind of hitchhiking under. Yeah. So that brought the prospective cost of the launch down to maybe 20 or 30. So we're back down to a $50 million mission from 100. So that was the first pivot. Now with the Electron, we've pivoted. We can now land on the moon for less than $10 million. So we've come down 10x over the course of our lifetime as a company, which was 10x less than the government could do at the beginning. So it's kind of 100x.
What is the actual cost of the jet fuel to get to
fuel?
Get to orbit?
So the fuel is almost incidental in any rocket. The fuel cost is very low. It's the touch labor, right? And this is what
the touch labor.
Yeah,
this is high-end individual engineers who have to fabricate the rocket.
Right, and this is what SpaceX has done so brilliantly: is really squeezed out the supplier chain in order to optimize and make the procurements and manufacturing much more efficient.
Yeah.
So in our case, it's now evolved to the point that elements that we thought we had to bring in-house and do ourselves, like avionics, we can mostly procure commercially because it's gone full circle now. There are avionics that run CubeSats that are very advanced. We're still doing our own propulsion.
All right. I'm going to live about 30, 40 more years in all likelihood if Peter Thiel doesn't get something done.
No.
So I'm going realistic. I'm going to put it at 75 to 85. I don't want to jinx myself, but I'd be pretty happy to hit in that window.
I'll see you when you're 600.
Okay.
All right.
So it's quite possible. Right. I don't know if Peter Thiel and Larry Page will get it done, though. We'll see.
Right.
I'm rooting for them. But let's just say 30 years from now, we're 75 years old and we're in the seniors' home, or we're running,
20,
or we're breaking the 4-minute mile.
2040, 2050, something like that.
Something like that. Let's just pick 2050. Make it nice and easy. 30 some odd years from now, 34 years, 33 and a half.
Sure.
What will space travel look like at that time?
We will be absolutely a multi-world species. So
in 35 years.
Absolutely. So
what does it mean? Define multi-world species.
That means we will have human beings on Mars. And we will have an economy between the Earth and the Moon. So there'll be people some people might choose to permanently live on the Moon, but certainly do honeymoons on the Moon and vacation on the Moon, but the industrialization of the Moon. And
people will be just doing their honeymoons on the Moon.
Why not? I mean, isn't that, yeah.
I don't know, danger, this is boring up there. I don't know. Are we going to get there and it's going to be boring? Is that the problem with the moon? Like,
no, I'm
kind of dusty and nothing going on.
That's actually one of the things I'm looking forward to is opening up the understanding of how incredible the moon is. Because most people think of the old pictures of Apollo and dead, dry, boring area. There are vistas on the moon that are almost beyond human comprehension. I mean, there are mountains that are 3 times the height of Everest. There are canyons that would make, the Grand Canyon look like a minor tributary. The vistas on the moon are incredible. To go there,
but they're all gray.
Actually, there's coloration. Well, the moon is not that colorful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get somebody out there to paint it.
Yeah.
Maybe make it a little. So you think we'll be multi-species? What about Mars? When are we going to get to Mars? And who's going to get there first?
So I believe SpaceX will be the first humans on Mars.
Really?
Powered by SpaceX, absolutely.
Before China?
Yes.
That's a bold prediction.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so 2025, 30-ish, the first, scouts landing on the moon.
25 years from now?
Yeah, or less.
Or less?
Less than that.
20 years, 15 years, something.
Yeah, less than that.
The first scouts will land there.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to get off the moon. They won't die there. Or you think it's going to be...
Well, we're talking about Mars now, right?
Mars. We're going to go to Mars.
Yeah, they'll come back.
Okay.
Yeah, Mars, and there'll be permanent colonies on Mars. And Elon's absolutely right that people will choose to live on Mars and sell everything they have and move to Mars. And the first babies born on Mars that look back at this blue dot and are told that that's where our species came from, we'll probably want to visit it one day.
Yeah.
But, and I look forward to the children that are...
mind-blowing.
Yeah, there are children...
You grow up in like a bubble on Mars, right?
Right. Well, maybe
because it'll be 100% artificial environments.
Maybe you don't terraform planets to suit our biology. Maybe you terraform ourselves to suit the planets. Right? So Homo spacians, are going to be, as humans branch out into different worlds...
You think that humans could actually evolve to survive on the planet?
Well, we're back to singularity and Ray Kurzweil, and we're back to merging with our machines, and who knows? We will be able to do whatever we want to do. But there are children that will be born on Earth very soon that will look up and see lights on the moon. And I think the psychological difference of seeing lights on the moon and knowing that we're a multi-world species will completely transform their perspectives. I think it'll be, peace through space is really what this is all about.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, explain what that means, peace through space.
Peace through space. So there's an effect that happens. Every astronaut will tell you. Soon there will be private space travelers that will have the same effect. It's called the overview effect. There's a cognitive shift that happens when you're in space looking down on Earth. It happened just by the pictures shown by Apollo of the blue Earth floating in space. That was a profound psychological change of the entire species, right? And to look down on Earth, ironically, only by going out into space and looking back on Earth did we learn to look at the Earth as this fragile biosphere. It led to ecological movements of conservation. Not a bad thing. We should definitely take care of our nest. We should be good stewards of planet Earth. But we also need to move out into space. In this fragile world, we're also sitting ducks, The dinosaurs didn't have a space program.
Right.
So we can't remain as a single planet species and survive. We're just if you believe we should just stay on Earth and consume it until it's gone, you're putting an expiry date on the human species.
Well, also the sun's got an expiration date on it as well.
That's right.
The sun's going to be gone in a billion or so years.
Yeah, so it's 5 billion years. But the point is, it's not a question of if, it's just when.
Right.
And does it have to be now? Maybe not.
Yeah, likely we get hit by a pretty big asteroid before the sun burns out.
We might not be wiped out by an asteroid next Tuesday.
Right.
Probably won't be, but I can't say for sure.
Right.
So who knows? And who knows where we are in the whole, universal context of intelligence? We're getting a little esoteric now with Fermi's paradox, and we haven't.
Explain to the audience what Fermi's paradox is.
Well, if you look at the length of time the universe has been around, the new data now that how many millions of planets we're discovering, it's the rule, not the exception, that there are planets around other stars.
You're talking about the Goldilocks zone and the planets that would be habitable because water only exists.
And if we're listening for if we're trying to find signals that might be of intelligent origin, why aren't they here yet? So it's a paradox. Given all that time and all that probability, why aren't they here? Where are they?
There are billions of planets that are inhabitable, and space is never ending.
Right.
And there's going to be certainly many species or civilizations that would be more advanced than us. Why have we yet to make contact?
Well, one of the answers is maybe we're first. That's one solution. Maybe we're first.
That would be like hitting 1,000 half-court shots in a row.
When you look at it from the probabilistic mode, it's
that
like
we
unlikely.
are the ones that are furthest along.
It seems unlikely from a probabilistic calculation, but there's also 100% certainty that somebody was first, right? So
that's fair enough.
Right. But this
we could be the ones who hit 100 in a row.
Right. This comes back to the need to be a multi-world species. Moon Express and our plans to utilize the moon as an 8th continent of Earth. This is one part of a magnificent tapestry as humans we need to do.
What are the other Fermi paradoxes? We're on something really cool here. What are the other reasons people think? Because I have my own.
You have your own. Maybe I should ask you what's yours?
Well, wait. The first one is that we were the first, right?
Right.
So that's like that would be amazing,
right?
If we were actually the most advanced. I don't think that's it. I think we're far from the most advanced.
Okay.
My theory is, and this is going to sound crazy, is that if you build such an advanced civilization that you could be multiplanetary, then you would become wise enough, hopefully, to understand the impact of a non-advanced civilization learning that they were not alone in the universe. And you would protect those civilizations in their evolution from having their minds blown by aliens existing, which is to say they're hiding. They're obviously know that light will travel across the universe and the humans in this sector will find out we exist and it will make their minds go crazy.
It's the quarantine theory. Don't leave them alone.
Yeah.
And in Star Trek, it's called the Prime Directive.
Don't interfere. So they're probably like, it's also like interfering means like it'd just be a headache for them. Like they're so advanced that they'd feel like some guilty conscience, like, oh my God, we messed up Earth. This like insane religion started because they realized they were interplanetary. Now they're all fighting with each other. We got to go fix it. Ugh, like Vault, I don't want to go fix this nonsense.
Yeah.
So it's more out of practicality that they just let us live in our bliss.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there are people that would be disturbed with incontrovertible evidence of not being alone, or that there's obviously more than one Genesis.
I mean, have you been on social media recently? People are going crazy. I mean, people are disturbed. The number of people with mental illness now is unbelievable.
But the elevation of our consciousness to the point that we are members of a galactic civilization is, to me, an enormous piece of information that I wouldn't want to hide from another evolving species. I think it would be
this would be like
important.
me and you would be like Jarrell and Kal-El, and we'd be like, we'd have this debate about if we should be actually let the peon humans understand. I just think these people are so simple-minded. Like I watch people on Twitter, and they're very dumb, and like I just think they would be like, they would find out there was this stuff going on in the world, and then some charlatan would start a religion based on it. And all these people would be drinking Kool-Aid and killing themselves.
But would you agree you're not getting a very good sample if all you're doing is measuring the trolls on Twitter, right?
That's pretty fair point, actually.
Yeah,
I would agree.
yeah.
Okay, what's another Fermi paradox?
Okay,
what do you believe?
Okay.
We have two theories so far. One, we're the most advanced.
So in my world,
the advanced ones are hiding.
Ever since I beamed down from the mothership when I was a little boy,
yes.
I've really looked at this as, no matter what the answer is, it's so fundamental. If the answer is no, that's profound. If there's nobody else, that's profound. If the answer is that there are others, that's profound. So it doesn't matter what the answer is. It's really important that we as a species take care of ourselves and move out responsibly into space and become a multi-world species. And that's what my life has been dedicated to in any way I can to help make that happen. Moon Express is a piece of that puzzle.
Right.
But other things that I've been doing are other pieces.
So wait, what's your theory, though? Then what do you think is your Fermi? What's your favorite Fermi?
I was trying to skirt that question.
You got to tell me what your personal one is. It's part of the game. I told you mine. I think they're out there. The one I've heard is that all species implode and kill themselves. It's pretty dark at a certain point before they get to leave the atmosphere.
Yeah, well, I'm an optimist, so I don't believe that's the case. I think we have a chance at survival, and you could go for the theory of simulation that Elon has popularized pretty recently. That is just not allowed in the simulation.
Leaving the planet is not allowed.
Or others, or detecting others is just not allowed.
Right.
Even though it contravenes logic, it's just disallowed in the simulation, so it's not happening.
Right. So whoever wrote the simulation we're currently in has decided, that's a pretty funny one, to just run down some of the ones on the on the Wikipedia page. Extraterrestrial life is rare and non-existent. Okay. No other intelligent species have arisen. Intelligent alien species lack advanced technology. It is the nature of intelligent life to destroy itself or others, Periodic extinction by natural offense. It's pretty interesting.
Well, all of these can be put. I mean, I was privileged to study under two enormously, incredibly intelligent individuals, Carl Sagan.
You worked with Carl Sagan, right?
I studied under Carl, and I became his special assistant, as a matter of fact.
Oh, wow.
In Cornell, and at the same time that Frank
He was
Drake,
at Cornell?
Yes, he was at Cornell.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so was Frank Drake, and who I studied under. I studied under as well. And Frank Drake is kind of famous in the SETI, or the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence circles, because Frank came up with an equation that puts all those probabilities together. You can say, what's the probability of worlds around suns that are in the Goldilocks zone times the duration of years of that times the probability of not destroying themselves times. And if you work out those probabilities and assign numbers, you come up to the number of intelligent civilizations in the universe. And Frank, it's called the Drake equation. You can look it up. It's a lot of fun. Frank is now at the SETI Institute, just down the road here in Mountain View. And Frank also sent the first signal out toward the cosmos, which was designed to be decoded. Well, designed to be decoded. I mean, there's black and white Lucille Ball programs out there that predate that. So the first detection of,
So what are the chances you get to the moon and you discover some business model that hadn't been thought of? In other words, because I heard that somebody wanted to do meteorite or comet, I guess it's asteroid. There's somebody who wanted to do, in that whole Singularity University crew, that wanted to do mining of asteroids.
Well, that's planetary resources. Yeah. So my good friend and Peter Diamandis and founded a company called Planetary Resources. We're in the same business. We just our thesis is that those asteroids are more easily mined on the moon, where they've been accumulating for billions of years and been totally mapped, and we know where they are, and we have a little bit, when you're mining, gravity is your friend. And so and proximity and the time cost of money and all of these things lead us to Moon Express was the best idea, not Asteroid Express.
Yeah, trying to catch up with an asteroid seems to me to be a Herculean complex task.
But it's another business case, and I wish all of them well. And you also have Deep Space Industries out there wanting to do the same thing. So the space resources and in the U.S. just last year signed into law, codified in law last November, that any private U.S. company that does go to space to obtain resources peacefully owns those resources. It's a finders keepers law, and that was very important for the certainty that any investors have in the long-term view of space resources, that the United States will back the ownership of those resources. So our government's position is first come, first served on what you find in space. Obtain in space. It's very critical that it's not a territorial claim.
Right. You don't get to put a flag down and say it's mine.
Right.
Or this acre is mine.
Right. And it's not really in a claim in the sense of the old mining claims, but it's a finders keepers. If you through your own investment and effort obtain something from an asteroid or from the moon, you own it.
All right. So if you get to the moon and you find this spectacular moon dust that makes batteries, moon gems, or whatever, or let's just say more practically, you find an energy source that would be 1,000 times more efficient than whatever we have.
Sure.
Now the next group, China, whoever, private company, whatever, could go to that same spot and just start mining it. You're going to have a free-for-all of robots and landers and maybe even humans all trying to get to that spot. It's going to become chaos.
Well, you have a nice treaty. So how this plays out in reality is a conversation the world is just starting to think about. It's a very important conversation. We have some examples in the past. There was a gold rush out in the west of the United States, and people built railways, and people sold Levi's and shovels and picks, and people went out there and panned for gold in areas that weren't interfering with anybody else, and it was all fine for a while until you started to rub shoulders with people that started to jump your claim, and then fights broke out, and sooner or later somebody got shot, and now they needed a committee, and now they need laws. Well, what we have before that, it's not the Wild West in space. There's an outer space treaty that talks about the way that nation states and all of their subjects, whether it be a human being or a company or a nonprofit, the way that they operate and behave. One of those things is that non-interference, the concept of non-interference is a very important part of that. So non-interference can be obtained through a recognition of land, or it can be obtained through a recognition of just not interfering with that entity. So we, in going to the moon, one of the aspects of the authorization we did get from the United States is we promised not to interfere, first of all, with any of the United States assets on the moon, and we also promised not to interfere with any other countries' operations or assets on the moon. And we also expect in the future that will be a reciprocal relationship, that nobody's going to interfere with ours.
So if you do land and you find something good, nobody gets to come and knock your well
And in the
over,
practical
so to speak.
sense, I think, in the old mining laws is, possession is 9 points of that law. You better be there, but it's use it or lose it. So don't say that, this is mine and then not go back and keep working it.
So in terms of who's been to the moon currently,
3 superpowers.
Russia, United States, and China.
Correct.
China's only been, they did like one landing or something.
China landed on the moon in late 2013.
Yeah.
But China's going back in a very systematic way, and they're making no secrets about their intentions of looking for resources and so forth.
Are they going to actually go and put humans up there? And is there a value to putting humans up there now? Because I'm looking at robots, and if you just look at robots here on planet Earth, they're getting pretty darn impressive.
They are.
And up there with solar and never going to sleep and never needing food and never needing to come back. And if they die, it's no big deal. Nobody cries. That's
why we're sending robots. But so sooner or later, we need to go as human beings because we want to know what it feels like. And we can think about not too long from now where we'll have robotic avatars that will replicate most of our senses, and we'll be able to safely transport ourselves to the moon or Mars in a robotic avatar that can touch and feel and look and sense.
Yeah. So what's the difference? You put on your headset, you're there.
Yet. Taste and smell and the things that are really important to us. That's a bit longer way off. I think humans. The answer is it humans or robots in space is a false question. The answer is both.
Of course, yeah.
Right.
And you could have like a little way station up there with 12 people who build and maintain and evolve the robots.
We're explorers as a species, and Moon Express is an exploration company, not unlike the looking at the Americas in the 1600s, going to a new world. Our new world is called the moon, and it's not the Atlantic Ocean; it's the ocean of space.
When do your investors think we'll get a return? If you have best case,
we're going to be profitable on our first mission. So from a marginal perspective, our missions are going to cost less than $10 million and be taking payloads, not free loads, but payloads that make those missions profitable.
Got it.
And as our we'll be hopefully the first private company to land on the moon, and that our valuation will be quite high at that point.
Got it.
What does the future look like for Moon Express? At some point, there has to be an evolution into a resource company, whether that's a partnership, an M&A, or an acquisition, or using an IPO to get the capital to do that.
Right.
I'm not sure yet. Right now, we've got our hands full wanting to land on the moon and do something that only superpowers have yet done.
It's pretty amazing that you've gotten this far when you think about it. In one way, we should have been there, but it feels like humans got kind of busy over the last 30 or 40 years just dealing with technology on this planet.
Right. And I've been, it sounds like we've both been space cadets for a long time.
Yeah.
And I've been involved in commercial space activities for a long time. It's only in the last few years that practically the technology has been radically reduced in cost, that a small team of 30, 40, 50 people can do something that used to be done by thousands, and that the capital is available. In the United States, particularly here in the Valley, for moonshots and for taking big risks. And there's never been a time before in history that more capital has been concentrated in just a few individuals who can make the decisions, who were themselves inspired by the same Apollo programs and the elephants of Apollo, just like me.
Right.
And the people who made their money on the internet, almost to a person, are investing in space.
It is interesting because you have obviously Elon, but you also have Jeff Bezos.
You do, and you have Naveen Jain.
Yep.
Right?
What's Naveen's background? What did he make all his
You have
money?
Richard Branson.
Where did Naveen make all his money? Was he
So,
Googler?
so Naveen rode the. So he came. History is he came from India with nothing, but got a job at Microsoft. Eventually built himself up, started his own companies, InfoSpace in the 90s.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, that was him. And then more recently, Intellius, he sold a bunch of companies. He's excited about the moon. He's excited about a lot of things, but he's been a great.
Yeah, see, I don't have the space bug like a lot of you guys do, like as crazy. But now, as you guys are kind of making progress, I'm like, I wonder if like maybe we get there by the end, and hey, spending a decade over there might be kind of cool. And if you could come back, it's like, well, why wouldn't you want to have that experience? Or it could just be like that's where you go to die.
Well, yeah, like Elon says, I want to die on Mars, just not on impact. But planet Earth is the best planet. I guarantee you that. For us right now, I love planet Earth. But as an explorer, would I go to the moon and come? As long as I knew I could come back for sure.
Yeah.
Would I go to Mars?
How far off do you think this are there startups working on terraforming? Because that to me, I'm into this like Prometheus and all this like craziness with alien.
It's not that crazy.
Is that real science? Like you think
it's
like
not that
actually
crazy.
terraforming?
It's not that crazy.
Well, explain to me why. Because that seems crazy to me.
Well, it
How do you
seems
make
crazy.
an atmosphere?
I think it seems crazy because I think you're applying linear type thinking where how can that possibly happen? If the power of the exponentials and the dramatic impact of accelerating technological change. We're at the knee of the curve of the future. I mean, we're living in Star Trek.
Yeah.
We really are. And we just really don't get it, but we are. And if you're standing back from the Earth and you roll the tape forward very fast, for billions of years, nothing was leaving the Earth. It was just dormant, except these biological systems all happening. And now you're seeing things leaving the Earth like popcorn, right? In the exponential knee of the curve, that's going to be humans, that's going to be robots. We're going to be expanding the economic sphere as a multi-world species. And within a few decades, people will look back at this point in history as the time when we broke out as a species into space.
Very well said. It's very interesting. You think about like the two big creations of, in our lifetime in the last 100 years. One of them is getting off the planet, and the other one was nuclear weapons and blowing things up. Well, both of these could take the human species either way. Right. One to zero and the other to infinity.
True. And our evolution into space is as profound and important as the evolution of the first animals from the oceans onto land. Right now, we're evolving into space. So it's
if you think about it, the amount of effort put into nuclear bombs and weapons, I wonder if the cumulative total of that, this would be a great question for Emmy Award-winning producer Jaggy, the total amount that the world, the superpowers have spent on nuclear weapons, I wonder how that compares to space exploration.
Well, a lot of the space exploration budgets are also based on militaristic reasons, right?
Sure.
So we are converting swords into plowshares. The ICBMs of the past that used to point warheads at each other are now utilized to send peaceful satellites into space. Yeah. We talked about peace through space, and I think as we evolve as a species and more people through the other 4 billion people who will be able to come online and get this overview effect, this perspective of looking at the Earth from space, I think that's going to be important for our evolution from our adolescence.
Right? Is that space elevator real? I mean, since I got you here and you're a space
physics,
expert.
Okay, so one of my other...
That to me, I thought I was being punked. Like that was like an April Fool's
one
joke
of my,
or something.
So I was so fortunate that my heroes of childhood became friends and mentors, but one of them was Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote the novel Fountains of Paradise, if you look it up, that really was Arthur wrote hard science fiction, as it's called, really extrapolating, using real physics and principles, what could be possible. And this Fountains of Paradise novel was about the construction of the first space elevator. He invented diamond filaments or something, but he looked at it as a materials issue. But when you think about it, it's also a political and policy issue. When you have an elevator that goes, 25,000 miles into space, what's the failure mode of such a thing, and what would happen, and so forth. So if
it comes crashing down
and wraps around the planet 6 times, right? So
holy sugar,
right? So you can't have one.
It would what would that look like? It'd be like a Grand Canyon around the planet Earth.
This is why space is such a great aggregator of helping humans learn how to work together and think together. The space station, people might say, man, that's an expensive thing. But boy, it's the first time that countries came together and figured out how to do things peacefully.
So it's certainly, if material science continued to develop, a space elevator is certainly possible.
There's the physics, so you're not breaking any laws of physics.
So just a long chain hanging out there in space.
Yep,
and you can ride up.
And it's right. So the actual, wall. So the cost of getting into space compared to all of that chemical, expense we talked about earlier in the program, but the energy equivalent, like from the plug in the wall, is only about $100. I mean, at normal rates. So the inefficiencies in the engineering and systems that we have today to get into space, there's a lot of performance curves that can be optimized, right? So chemical rockets are kind of the brute force way of getting into space. Sure. I'm waiting for my transporter, and that will be that'll be better. All
right, listen, Moon Express is the company. You can follow them at moonexpress.com, or you can follow them on the Twitter, MoonEX. Bob is Bob_Richards on the Twitter. And wow, I hope you win that Google Lunar Prize. That would be, how amazing would that be?
Right, absolutely.
That'd be insane if you got $20 million. And what does the other $10 million go to? Has that been distributed to people?
Well, the $30 million is the purse. So a $20 million first prize, a $5 million second prize, if there's another team that kind of does the same thing after the first team, and then $5 million in bonus prizes. So Moon Express could win $25 million if we do the first prize and do bonus prizes.
The bonuses are like, go to 5 locations.
Yeah, go for the distance, discover water, just
cool
stuff. Small stuff.
And the government didn't put any money up. Shouldn't the government put up like money for these prizes?
The government should be a customer. And so if you look at history, transportation is the ideal way where governments transform economics into the private sector.
Right.
It happened in aviation. It happened in the Maritimes. It's going to happen in space.
Amazing. It's insane. What you're doing is insane and completely logical at the same time. I wish you great success with it.
Thank you very much.
This has been an amazing discussion. I really think there is a possibility that we will be multiplanetary by the time we live forever. Certainly, the way these guys are. You believe in that life extension stuff, right? You're part of the singularity cult.
Yes.
You believe that?
One of the founders, actually, of the
what do you
Singularity
think,
University.
You are, yeah. So what do you think, how do you think that happens, that we become the singularity? You think we're just going to upload our brains and then we'll have consciousness in the machine?
So the scary thing is, I don't think it's scary, but what's happening today is already transformative. We're already becoming cyborgs. We don't think, because it's happening little by little.
Sure.
We put implants in our brains that help epilepsy.
Stents, all this stuff.
Yeah, that's right. So
3D printing of organs will be here soon.
It's all happening. I think there's a existential argument where AI could be a threat, and I think we have to think carefully about that when you have very smart people providing some warnings about, well, hold on a second, let's really think about this.
Yeah.
But I do believe in a very positive future, and I do believe that the synthesis of the machines that we create and our human evolution will be an amazing future for us.
Yeah. I'm really concerned about this AI, like, Google has so much of a head start right now. Like, they're going to figure some stuff out that I don't think anybody really anticipated.
Skynet.
They may have figured it out already. That's the other thing.
Right.
The other possibility is that they're sitting on some big discoveries.
Well, So we have a world where the internet. If you look at the planet Earth as a living organism, the Gaia hypothesis, where it's a living thing, what the internet is doing is it's really the neuron system connecting billions of minds together. So it's the Earth used to not operate as a single organism intelligently. Now it's starting to operate as a single organism intelligently, where one party on one side of the planet can work with somebody on the other side of the planet. We can decide to do something.
The Earth is a cyborg. Basically, what you're saying.
And as we move into space, we really are taking a significant part of the planetary DNA with us.
Sure.
Right? So you can look at the Earth is replicating itself through humans that have evolved with the intelligent capacity with technology.
Objectively, that's how it would seem in a science fiction movie if you wrote something similar. Like,
That sounds like a good science fiction movie.
well, I mean,
but,
it's just like, it's like the Borg. Like, oh yeah, they went from one planet to another. They put some metal inside their bodies. They became superhuman. They had like one consciousness. I mean, I think this is like every major science fiction,
I think we've touched on a lot of science fiction in this program, but
how do you even tell anymore?
well,
What science fiction? It's like what we're doing seems so much more insane.
well, the science of reality is just so mind-bendingly expansive compared to what we can imagine in science fiction.
Yeah.
The reality is so cool, and as we go to the moon and Mars, we're going to be discovering new things that we just hadn't even thought of.
I'm going to make pizza
On the moon.
that you lose weight. That's it. This is the startup I'm
tastes
looking
great,
for.
and every bite
I just want to
gives
make a
you
slice
weight.
of like a Brooklyn
It's-
slice.
right.
That when you eat it,
Right.
it removes fat from your body.
Right. It's
We'll probably get to Mars first.
Energy negative.
Yeah, I want an energy negative pizza. I ate
Yeah.
the pizza and it's like I went to the gym.
Yeah, that'd be great.
How's that not? If you can get to the moon,
Okay, you do that.
I'll do that. You get to the moon.
I'll get to the moon.
You know what?
And I'll give you the
get ticker
cheese.
tape parade.
I'll give you the moon
Trust me.
cheese.
Yeah,
Okay?
exactly. Bring me
All
the
right.
moon cheese.
All right.
All right. We'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups. Bye bye.
That was fun. Thank you.